Hi, my name's Adam from Inflectra, and in today's video I'm going to be introducing the Inflectra alternative to the Micro Focus QA suite. So what we'll be doing first of all is a overview of the Inflectra platform and how it compares to Micro Focus. Then we'll go into a live demo of the SpiraTeam ALM product. Then we'll be showing you how you can go one step further and integrate Rapise for functional testing and then NeoLoad for load testing. And then lastly, we want to show you how you can migrate easily from Micro Focus ALM and other tools into SpiraTeam. So first of all, let's introduce some of the tools we're going to see today. SpiraTeam is our application lifecycle management system and is a direct replacement for Micro Focus ALM, formerly known as HP ALM or Test Director or Quality Center. Rapise is our functional test automation tool for web, mobile, and desktop applications, and it replaces Micro Focus UFT or Unified Functional Tester, also known as QuickTest Pro or Astra QuickTest. And then lastly, we'll also be introducing NeoLoad from our partner Neotis. That is a load testing and performance testing tool, which is a replacement for LoadRunner. So the question you might ask is, how does this all fit together? Well, this is how it does. So SpiraTest or SpiraTeam from Inflectra, that's the test management platform. That's where you can manage your requirements, your test cases, your defects, all of the test processes and platform. It also provides you analytics and reporting. You can then tie in Rapise for functional testing. And lastly, you can then tie in Neotis' NeoLoad tool for performance or load testing. However, this is not the entirety of the ecosystem. You can also tie in other kinds of testing as well. You can tie in unit tests and security tests and other kinds of application that we support. For example, we have integration with SOAP UI for API testing. We have integration with JUnit, NUnit, Python test, and Jasmine Mocha for different unit test frameworks, as well as Selenium. So, what are the benefits of switching to SpiraTeam? Well, first of all, it has a fast, modern user interface. Unlike Micro Focus ALM, there's no ActiveX. It doesn't run just in IE10. It is a contemporary, modern application that runs on all the major browsers, Firefox, Safari, Chrome, Opera. It also runs on a mobile device, iPhone, Android, tablet, cell phone. And it's much faster and easier to use. You can be up and running in SpiraTeam on our cloud platform in less than 10 minutes. It takes you maybe another half an hour to get everything configured and all your products set up, versus potentially taking weeks and weeks with Micro Focus's tools with all the complex administration. In addition to that, we also include agile planning tools right out of the box, so you don't need to find a separate Scrum tool or Kanban tool. They're rolled right into SpiraTeam, so you've got an integrated view across both your QA disciplines and also your DevOps and agile planning. And then fifthly, you do also have cross-project reporting and program management, features that generally aren't available in Micro Focus unless you buy some expensive or add-on reporting and dashboard tools. In addition to that, we do provide source code management and DevOps and SCM functionality right out of the box, and we'll demonstrate that later on today. SpiraTeam is also an open platform. There we will be demonstrating Rapise for functional testing and our partners NeoLoad for load testing. You could also tie in tools from our competitors and open source tools such as JMeter or Selenium. And as I mentioned earlier on, SpiraTeam is very easy to administer. It's all done through the web interface. There's no separate site admin, and there's no VBA scripting required to do workflows or approvals or any of the changes in the system. All customization is done through the simple and easy to use web interface. We do also ship the system with built-in workflows and signatures and other tools to make managing it much easier. So on day one, it's ready to use. Finally, we have a long-term investment in SpiraTeam and also in Rapise. Furthermore, our partner Neotis has been working in the load testing space for the last 15 years. We've been doing SpiraTeam for the last 12 years and Rapise for 10 years. We have a long-term investment in these tools. They are constantly being evolved. There are new releases every month and major releases every quarter. So unlike Micro Focus's tools, which have been passed through various hands along the way, they're not shelfware. They're actively being developed and maintained and actively being enhanced with new innovations. So you know that when you choose the SpiraTeam Inflectra ecosystem, you're building a platform and buying into a platform that has a long-term future for innovation. So that sounds great, but as always, the hard part is, how do I get from where I am today to where I want to be? Well, that's easy also. We have migration tools built right into our systems. We have a migration tool, which you can see right in front of you, for migrating Micro Focus ALM projects, formerly known as HPALM, into SpiraTeam. It's a simple, easy-to-use wizard. It connects to your Micro Focus ALM solution. It then connects to SpiraTeam and will migrate each project automatically, maintaining all the traceability and all the links between the different artifacts. So it's a one-click solution. And that's enough of PowerPoint. Let's go into a live demo to see the real application. So, first of all, let's bring up SpiraTeam right over here. And I'm running it today in Firefox. As I mentioned, it could also be running in Chrome or Safari or Opera or IE or Edge. So when you first come into SpiraTeam, we have these built-in dashboards. This is my project level dashboard, and we make the design easy to find information. So you haven't got to go hunting in the system to find things. So this project dashboard will show you all your key test metrics. For example, your requirements test coverage. What percentage of your requirements have test cases? What percentage of them don't? In this case, about 47% of our requirements don't have any test cases, which is a huge risk in a real project. Furthermore, another 11% of our requirements do have test cases, but no one's run them yet, so we don't know if they would pass or fail. And then, of course, for those that have been run, we can see right here at a glance what percentage of those have passed and failed. In this case, the majority have failed. So if this was a real project, we'd probably be a bit worried by now. In addition to the requirements view, you can also see the test case counts. So you can see this snapshot that shows you what percentage of your test cases have passed and failed. You can also see that right here by release. So if you're testing different versions at once with different sprints, different iterations, you can see the test results in parallel for each of your test plans. Knowing the current state is great, but also trending can be very useful. Are we getting better or are we getting worse? So this trend graph will show you the trend. Are we having more tests passing or more tests failing? And you can see here the red is clearly getting bigger, the green is actually getting slightly smaller, the not runs is staying about the same. So if this was a real project, we'd probably be worried because things would be getting worse and less stable. But either way, you've got this reporting right out here on hand at your fingertips. SpiraTeam is a full replacement for HPALM, so it does include all of the same metrics you'd expect, like not just requirements and test cases, but also the defect counts, the defect summary. You can see this defect table with the count of defects by status and priority. You can also see it filtered by a particular type. I just want to see bugs. I just want to see enhancements. There's also nice graphical views where you can see your open defect count, the count by priority, the requirements, how many bugs they've opened. So that way you've got traceability from requirements to tests to defects right here in the system. In addition to that, though, we do provide a lot more. SpiraTeam is a full DevOps and SCM and ALM solution. So if you go to the development view, for example, you'll also see that you can tie in your builds from tools like Jenkins, TeamCity, or Bamboo. So you can see your CI tools reporting back passes and fails. They can also be used to schedule tests when those run. You'll also see any source code commits. We do have a full source code management system built in based on Git and Subversion. You can pick which one you want to use on each project. And you can also see from our robust task management capability, are our tasks behind schedule or on schedule? Are our tasks efforts inflating or are they correct? And we also provide quick graphs that will show you what's your burn down, what's your burn up, what's your velocity. Easy to see right here in the system, and we'll find any late finishing or late starting tasks right here. So from a project management standpoint, you can find out anything that's overdue in one easy to use dashboard. In addition to the project, we also let you roll it up to the program level. One of the things that was very weak in Micro Focus ALM was the cross-project reporting. In SpiraTeam, it's built in out of the box. Here's a program view for this library information program. It's got 2 projects, and you can see there are 2 projects shown here side by side. You can look at the 2 individually, or you can look at the overall graph to see what is the total test coverage, what is the total status for testing, tasks, defects. You can see risks, you can see builds. All of those metrics are shown across the entire program. In this example, because it's a demo, I only have 2 projects, but you could have 10, 20, 30 projects in this program, and you've now got a nice consolidated view of all the information in one place. Let's dive a little bit deeper. And the cornerstone of SpiraTeam is the requirements management module. We do support a full hierarchical requirements management capability. If you're used to Micro Focus ALM, this will look familiar. You've got requirements in a hierarchy. You can see for each one, what are the test cases? Are they passing? Are they failing? There's a whole bunch failing right here in red. There's some further down that have got a mixture of green, which means passed, or yellow, that means blocked. You can run filters. So if I want to find all my requirements that have got no test cases, that's easy, not covered. Here they are. Find all the requirements that have got at least one failure. I can do that as well. I can also combine filters. Let me find also those that are priority 1. And I can save my filters and make them favorites. As well as having requirements, you can also see for each of these requirements the tasks. So for example, this requirement here, the ability to create additions, if I hover the mouse over, I'll see it's got one test case that's grey, meaning not run, but I do see that the development tasks are behind schedule. So you also have not just a test case traceability back to your requirements, but also task and development activity traceability too. And that's evident when you click on a particular requirement. Let's click on this one, ability to add new book to the system. You can see right here, here's a requirement, here's a description, here's some comments. People can provide feedback. There is a workflow engine built into SpiraTeam, so you can move the requirement through different statuses. You can make a new requirement, you can review it, you can approve it. We've got built-in support for electronic signatures if you're doing anything in life sciences or any industry that needs formal sign-off. You can also have instant messaging, so if you want to message someone, you can send instant messages right here in the system, like that. In addition to that, you can also add what we call followers. That's where you can add someone else to review a requirement and then they're CC'd whenever a change is made. Once you've written the requirement, you go to the Test Coverage tab. You can see these are the 4 test cases that are linked back to this requirement. And they can be a mixture of manual tests, functional tests, load tests, API tests, security tests, all the different kinds that you might need to test all of your features. We'll be demonstrating specifically how to use a functional test and how to do a load test, but that's not the limit of the system. As well as testing, we do support the full life cycle. So on the task management section, you'll see here there are 3 tasks. They're both done. And that way you can track, is this feature fully developed and is it ready for testing, and then has it tested and has it passed or failed. You can also attach documents to a particular requirement, and there's also, which we'll get into in a second, there's also a change history tracker. So of course, changing requirements and being able to roll back those changes is critical. We have a full version control system built in. And in addition, we also have traceability by going to the Associations tab. So you can see links from this requirement to other requirements in the tree structure or to other defects on the page. So if you run a test case and it fails and a defect is logged, which we'll do in a minute, those defects are tied back to the source requirement. SpiraTeam does provide some features not in Micro Focus ALM. First of all, we do have a planning board view. So whereas Micro Focus ALM is limited to a traditional requirements hierarchy, inside of SpiraTeam, we have planning boards. So for example, this is a view that shows you all of the user stories for a particular sprint with different people. So here's the people, Fred, Joe, and so on. Here's their user stories. Each story is shown along with the test cases connected to each one. And you can see different views. I can see a Kanban view like that. Here's my different statuses. Here's the stories. This one here has got 3 test cases. They've all failed. They are red. If I was to go, I can drill up to see by iteration as well, by iterational sprint. Sprint 1, sprint 2, sprint 3. There's my test cases. Again, they've all failed. There's the name of the requirement. And we can always see at the sprint level, we can go to the releases view and see all the different releases of my system. These are all my versions, and you can see all the tests. So here's requirements in this release, requirements in this release. This has got some tests that have passed. This is one that's blocked. Here's some that have failed. So it gives you an agile view of your project with all the sprints, all the releases, and you can see your user stories, and then you can include the test cases if you want, or the tasks inside each story card. In the releases view of SpiraTeam, you can organize a hierarchy of releases, and we do support both agile projects. For example, this one here has a release with 3 sprints or iterations under it. We also support more traditional waterfall or V model projects, where we have, for example, a release, and instead of iterations, we have 3 phases: unit test, SIT, UAT. You can do things like design, develop, test, and you can even mix and match. You could have a waterfall project that has agile iterations in the middle and has some upfront design and maybe a sign-off UAT. Really up to you. SpiraTeam is methodology agnostic. It works with your methodology rather than imposing one. If you go into planning documents, we do have a decentralized document management system, which is not in Micro Focus ALM, so another benefit of our system. And that's a great feature because let's say you've got some design documents or sequence diagrams or other artifacts that you link to a requirement. Well, let's say you want to upload a new version of the sequence diagram. I go to the versions, I can upload a new version right here. Well, that's great. I've got a new document, new screenshot, new diagram. Oh, I've got to go through all my requirements now and relink it? No, you don't. You associate this one document using the Associations tab, and then when you link it, this case is linked to a test case. We could even link it to a requirement, for example. And when you do that, if I change a new version, it uploads all of the items that use that version. So now I've got a single place to upload a new version, and it takes care of all the links for me automatically, which is a great feature. So that's the planning side. Let's go into testing. So the cornerstone of testing are the test cases. So first of all, let's look at some functional tests. So here's some functional tests. These can be manual tests. They can be automated functional tests. They could also include the load tests and unit tests. All the test cases in the system will have a name, the status from the last time they were run, and you can show things like the date it was last executed, who ran it, is it ready for testing, is it still in draft, and you can also view the different test plans. So I can look at, for example, release 1 and just see the test results and test plan from release 1, look at release 1.1, and now see different results in a different test plan. Let's go into a test case. This is a test case. It's got the name right here. It's got a description. We do support free text, rich text editing. You can include a rich description with lots of different names and bullets and lists and tables. You can put a screenshot into it, which we'll do in a minute. The other thing that's really important with this is we have a workflow editor. So when you write a test case, it's written as a draft. You've then got the ability to have a review cycle, approvals, and now it's ready for test. And then eventually it can be retired when it's no longer needed. There is a built-in suspect flag right here, and the suspect flag is really cool. If someone was to change a requirement after the test case was approved, we're going to automatically flag it as suspect, so then you can find the impact. I've changed the requirement. I need to review some test cases and make sure they don't need to be changed and rewritten to reflect that requirement. So it makes impact finding really easy. Once you run the test cases, they go into the test run section. We're going to click on a run in a minute when we run the test case, but this to show you, this is where all the runs are stored. And as we run a test case, you're going to see the results right here. And these results include both manual test cases and automated test cases. So that all the results are in one place. And you can see the difference by going to the show fields and show the type. That will show you is it manual, is it automated. You can even show the runner name, and that will show you what tool was used. Was it NeoLoad? Was it Rapise? Was it one of our open source integrations like Selenium? It's all visible right here. When the tests run and they fail, they obviously will lead to defects that you can see in the defect view. And there's also, of course, a history tab. So whenever you change a test case, we've got a record of it as well. Now the test cases themselves consist of steps, and in HP or Micro Focus ALM, these were called design steps. We just call them test steps, but it's the same thing. These are the steps that a manual tester would carry out. So for example, clicking on a link to create a book, entering a name, choosing some information. This is the step-by-steps they're going to follow. We do support linked test cases. So for example, this login page, I don't want to have login steps in every test case. I'm going to log in every test case. I create one login test case, and then I use this insert link feature like here. Choose existing test case from the appropriate folder, and then you can pass through different parameter values, like login name might be guest, and operating system might be Windows 10, for example, something like that, and then that becomes a link like this one here, and it's now using that test case and passing through these parameter values. And if you look at the test case itself, when you write a test case, you can make it a generic component that can be used. All you do is create the steps. You can use this variables in the edit parameters section, login and password, and then you can insert a cursor, and it then puts that directly into the test description, like here. And that way, when you run the test case, it's going to change that login and password into the actual parameter value that's passed through. We're going to run this test case in a minute. Before we do that, the other piece to mention is automation. When we run this in an automated fashion using Rapise and NeoLoad, we're going to be using this section here. That's where you tell SpiraTeam this is an automated test, and if it's Rapise or if it's NeoLoad, you tell it which type of tool it is. We do also support other tools. So for example, if you're going to migrate from HP or Micro Focus ALM, which we hope you will, then you're going to have to figure out your migration plan. And we would recommend, it's quite likely that you'll want to migrate the Micro Focus ALM tool first using our wizard, and then you want to be able to migrate your QTP or UFT scripts over to Rapise and your LoadRunner scripts over to NeoLoad. But for a while you'll have both. That's not a problem. We have integration with NeoLoad, we have integration with LoadRunner, we have integration with Rapise, our own tool, but also integration with QTP or UFT. So the good thing is you can actually continue to run those tests from SpiraTeam, have a central test management solution, and then slowly migrate your load tests and your functional tests over to the newer tools over time. But in the meantime, you can still run them from here. Okay, so let's go ahead now and do some manual testing, and then we'll come to automation. So first of all, for manual testing, we're going to go over to test sets. Test sets is equivalent to the test set feature of Micro Focus ALM. I think they call it Test Lab. And we've created some tests here in the demo environment. So we created some demo tests. The first one we've created is a functional test suite and a performance test suite. But let's go ahead and create a manual one now. So let's go ahead here and say sample manual suite. There it is. And we click on it. And we want to add some tests to run. So we go to the Overview tab, and we're going to go in here, and we'll add some test cases. So let's add some functional tests. Create a book, create an author, edit a book, edit an author. Perfect. 4 tests. And you can drag and drop to change the order. So let's say I want to create the author before creating the book. I can do that. I want to edit the author before any of the book. Do that. So you can rearrange the order the way you want. And then for manual testing, we'll choose the release 1. We'll choose the owner. Let's say it's going to be Fred. And I want to run it today. Perfect. Hit save. And now it's going to schedule the test. I, as Fred, would get an email. I go to the My page and run the test. Before we do that, one other thing I should mention is we need to specify the values to use for some of the parameters, like the login, the password. You can specify them right here, either at the test set level. So if let's say you want to run these 4 test cases one time with one set of values, well, you could do that here. You can go in here and say browser name would be Firefox. And we could also, let's say, the login, the operating system is Windows 10, like that. That's great. Now let's suppose we want to run these 4 test cases through all the browser combinations. Well, is there an easier way? Well, the answer is yes, there is. It's called test configurations. So we go over to test configurations, and I've created these ahead of time. You can go in here and you can build a list of different data sets. For example, here's a list of browsers and operating systems, and you can tell SpiraTeam to pick the list of browsers and the list of operating systems, and it will automatically pairwise correlate them and build a data grid. So it says get every browser and every operating system, and then build every possible combination. And then what you'll do is you go in here afterwards and you can say, well, some of these combinations are not valid. For example, IE does not work on a Mac, and Safari does not work on a PC. So you might want to remove those using the remove button. At that point, you'll get a finite set of valid combinations that you want to test, and that's your test configuration. And then you go back to your test suite and you simply say use that configuration by changing this button here. And when you do that, instead of it being 4 test cases to run, it will be 6 times 4, 24, and that's obviously going to make it much easier to do data-driven testing. For today, I don't want to make you wait through that many tests, so I'm not going to set that value. We're just going to run it one time with these values, but you get the idea. So now that I've scheduled it, if I go back to my page, I will see right here, assigned to me would be simple manual suite right here. Let's go ahead and play it. And again, the dashboards that we have in SpiraTeam are designed to make it easy for users to find the information. This is my test wizard. The release is 1.0. If I choose build, it's going to show me any builds that are populated from my CI tool. In this case, it's Jenkins. So I've got build. I can tie into any of the builds from CI and say not only am I testing release 1, but I'm testing specific build number from release 1. And we have a free plugin for Jenkins in our marketplace. If you go into web browser and operating system, these are custom values we set up in the demo environment. You can set these here. These are just things we set up for the demo. You set up your own custom fields to capture the different things that you need. Okay, so here's my test suite and my set and my cases and my steps. So there's different views we have. First of all, this is the split view. This lets you look at the test cases and you can look at the first couple of steps. So you can go pass, you can go read this one, okay, pass and pass. And let's say we get to step 4 with an error. This is where you put in the actual result. So we'll say failed with a error. We need a screenshot. So let's go grab one over here from this sample application. I'll just grab a screenshot of this and I'll paste it in like that. Very easy to do, one click. And then I want to raise a defect with it, so I go to incidents. It's going to warn me there is already existing defect linked, so I can see, is it the same issue? No, it's not. If it is, I could link it, but I don't need to because it's actually a different issue. So I'm going to raise a new issue right here. And again, very easy to use. There's no separate pop-up like on ALM. You've got a simple form to put in the bug name. So, bug found while creating authors, for example. There's various custom fields we've set up, so I'll fill those out. You could describe which ones you want to fill out, and that's it. Hit the fail button, and now it's failed the step and logged the defect. It's that easy. Now, this is not the only view. We do have 2 other views to mention. This is our split view, which is my favorite, but also the table view. Some people really like a long table of all the tests and all the steps written out in full. Table view gives you that, and it gives you individual pass and fail buttons for each row in it. You can also log defects, add attachments using the menu. But it's functionally equivalent to the split view, just a different layout for people who like to scroll more and click less. The other view we do have is the mini view. That's what you'll see on a cell phone. So if I was to run this on a cell phone, something like that, you can run the whole application and use the camera. But it has one other feature too. It has the embedded view. The embedded view lets you run the browser inside an iframe, and this is really handy when you have a tester that's working from home, for example, and only has one screen. Maybe normally in the office they have two screens, one to run the application, one to run SpiraTeam. That's perfect. In this case, we don't have that for whatever reason. I don't want to alt-tab between the two different browser tabs or alt-tab between two different browsers. I can just run my application in here and log my results over here. So that makes it really easy when you're working with one screen, and you can do screenshots as well. I'll put it back. So that's how you do testing. Once it's all finished, you hit the finish button and you can go. But that's enough for today. Let's look at the results of what we just did. If we go into the testing test cases, actually we can go to test sets even, it's even easier. There's our test set. It's got 1 failure, 3 not run. We'll click on that. And we'll see there's our test run right here. We'll click on that, and you can see this is the details of what was tested. So there's the test set name, test case name, how long it took, how long it was meant to take, and then here's the step-by-step breakdown. These 3 steps passed, this step failed, a defect was raised as a screenshot. Let's look at the defect. It's right here. I'll control-click on it, bring it up on another tab. There's my defect. We pre-populated it with the description of what was happened, the expected result, the actual result, screenshot, and then the step-by-step breakdown what happened right here. So it makes it really easy to see for the developer. When the developer gets this, they can see, what happened, what went wrong, how do I fix it. All the steps are described, and if they need more information in the Associations tab, they can click back onto the test run or the requirement and see either the requirement, which will tell them this is what the thing is meant to do, or they can click on the test run and see exactly what happens step by step. And that's really handy when you do have a tester and developer, maybe not in the same office, maybe different time zones, and they don't necessarily have the ability to ask each other live what happened. Because when I'm a developer and I see this test and it failed, I might try a different URL. Maybe I'll use the staging server, not the dev server. Maybe I'll use a different login and password. Maybe I'll follow a different set of steps to get to that page. I might be able to actually have a completely different result as a result of that. So how many times have developers logged or testers logged a bug and the developer says, I can't reproduce it, and sends it back. So to avoid these miscommunications, having the central view of exactly what was done each time is really helpful and reduces miscommunication. And then for the project manager, it's really easy to go ahead and assign this and triage it. You can just go in here and say assign it. So let me assign it to Joe. And I'll put a comment in. Oops, over here. Joe, please fix. Hit save. And when I do that, it's going to warn me that some things are required. Okay, great. I'll change that to high, change that to start date March 1st. You can customize exactly which fields you want to be filled out. You can make things optional, make things required. Hit save. It's now been assigned to Joe. Joe gets an email, and Joe fixes the bug. And when Joe's finished, it gives it back to the tester, and the tester runs the retest like this. And then let's just say all passed. So we can do something like pass all, and it's passed. So you still have the original run where it failed, but now you have a new run which passed, and you have that traceability. So if you go back into that test, look in the runs, you'll see there it failed, and then now it passed. So there's always a history maintained. In addition to that functionality, you've got a full defect tracker built in. This is our defect tracker. It's fully featured. You can log just defects directly using the new Incident button. And if you aren't using SpiraTeam for defect tracking, that's great also, because we have full integration with tools like Jira, Microsoft Team System or TFS, GitLab, GitHub, Redmine, a variety of other tools as well. So if you are using another defect tracker, don't worry, we fully integrate with that as well. In addition to the classic defect view, we do also have a Kanban board view of defects. You can go to a board view, see all your defects. And as I mentioned before, we also do have a full source code management system built in, so you can also get traceability to source code. So if you are making changes, you can look at, let's say, a file. Let's look at this Python file. You can see the actual source code itself. There it is. You can see the revisions that were made, and you can see that here's a change that was made by Fred, which is by me. I fixed and implemented a bug, and I implemented a task. If I click on it, I can see what those are right here, and then go view the task, or go look at the defect. So we have traceability from requirements to test, to defects, to source code, to tasks, all in one environment, and also to builds as well, if you're tying in CI tools. And then lastly, within SpiraTeam, we have full analytics and reporting. We've got varieties of different graphs and charts you can view. All the graphs are visible in the system. You can filter them by different things like date range, or by release, or by type. You can view any of the data grids behind any of the graphs. Very similar to what you could probably do with ALM's live reporting and a live analysis feature, but there's so many more options. You can see different graphs. You can choose to slice and dice by different fields. Here's priority. I can view it by status or by owner, for example, like that. So there's lots of different views you have in the system. All of these views can be exported as a data grid or as an image. And as well as that, you can also run document reports and generate actual documents out of the system. For example, you might want to write a traceability matrix. You can generate that right here. Just go to requirements traceability, choose the format, and then just hit the button. You can also filter it too. I'm just going to run as is with everything. It's not a big project. And that's very similar to the Micro Focus ALM document generator, but more flexible. While that's running, we can also get ready for the next part of the demo, which will be the test automation piece. Oh, there it is, actually, it's ready. So I'm just going to open the report. Here it is, there's our traceability matrix in Excel. Great, so we've gone through requirements management, test management, we've run a manual test, we've done some reporting. The next thing we want to do is tie in the automation. There's two things we'll be doing. First of all, we're going to do a functional test using Rapise, which is our replacement for UFT or QTP. And then we'll be doing a simple load test using NeoLoad, which is the replacement for LoadRunner. So first of all, let's do the functional testing. So if you go back to our test cases, by going to functional tests, we're going to create a new functional test in here and run it. So how do we do that? Well, we use our tool called Rapise, which is right here. And Rapise is a web, mobile, desktop, and API functional testing platform. It can test any web app across all the major browsers. It integrates with Selenium. It can test mobile apps, iOS or Android. It can test various desktop apps like Dynamics. It can test also web apps like CRM and Salesforce. It also has support for API testing, both REST and SOAP. The other nice feature, unlike some tools like UFT, which is that it doesn't require you to be a programmer. Whereas UFT requires you to write everything in VBA, Visual Basic for Applications, Rapise is predominantly a codeless testing tool with the option to write subroutines in JavaScript if you need, but the majority of your testing will be done just using our codeless interface. And to show you how easy it is to use, we're going to record a simple web test today. So let's go ahead and set that up. First thing we need to do is just point it at SpiraTeam so we know where to save everything. Go to Spira Connection, put the URL, login password. We give it a machine name. That way we know where the tests are going to be run. This machine is called TARDIS because I'm a Doctor Who fan. Hit test. Yep, we're good. Hit save. And now we're going to create a new test. So let's go ahead and hit create. We're going to put that in the functional folder. So we'll call it new test case. It will be simple functional test. One, I guess that's fine. Hit OK. And we also need to tell it what kind of test this is. We'll be testing this web application over here. So I need to tell it to use web. So that's the button here. I'm going to use Firefox as my browser, but I could use any of the others. And the last choice is, do I want to use the codeless methodology, or which is called Rapise Visual Language, or JavaScript? We recommend pretty much in all cases now using the Rapise Visual Language. You can always add code if you need for specific extensions. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm done. And there's my test script. It's basically a grid. On the left are my objects. We'll come back to that in a minute. Let's go ahead and record the test. And I'm going to record a simple login test. If you're interested in more comprehensive examples of functional testing, we do have other webinars. We have webinars that cover testing web apps like Microsoft Dynamics and Salesforce. We also have examples for mobile. We have examples for desktop apps, APIs. So again, we can only scratch the surface in today's webinar and today's video, but please feel free to check out the other videos on our YouTube channel. We have lots of good videos on those different types of technology that cover different types of scenario. We've got examples of creating sales orders, examples of automating Office 365, Dropbox, SharePoint, a whole bunch of different tools. So again, please feel free to check out the other webinars and videos that we have recorded on our website. But for today, we're going to do it very simple. We're going to log in. So I'm logging in with Librarian. And this is an application that we do host on the internet. So if you want to try it out at home, you can. Hit login. Okay, and obviously testing means you've got to test it, not just do something. So I logged in, but I really need to verify I logged in. So I use this verify option, Control and 1, hover the mouse over Librarian, Control and 1, and then do inner text. I want to verify the text, hit OK. And again, in real life, I'd probably do some more testing, but for today's simple example, let's just log out and hit finish. I've now got a simple test right here. it's got a series of actions, and then it's got one condition. These are the conditions here. So everything you see, whether it's an action or a verification, does tie to what's called an object, and then there are actions on the object. An object is basically either a user interface element, so for example, it could be a web page link, it could be a Windows Forms button, it could be an Android link or button or label, anything on the user interface. It could be a cell, it could be a jQuery selector, it could be a React component. Anything on the user interface is what we would call an object with specific actions that we can perform. Or if you're using our web service testing functionality, it could be an endpoint, it could be a REST endpoint, it could be a SOAP endpoint, and it could be a specific function you're calling. So you can mix and match UI and APIs in the same test. And let me just get rid of that extra line we have here. I don't need that one. It captured me typing in twice. Get rid of that. So there's my test. We click on the login, we click on the username, put in the username, put in the password, hit the button, verify, check everything's good, and then log out. Perfect. So now what we'll do is first we'll play it back on Rapise itself just to see it works, and then we'll show you how you save it into SpiraTeam and play it back from test management. So let's just play it locally first just to make sure we got it right. And when you do the playback, it's going to click through the browser and you're going to see things happen. And it should pass. So we should see all greens coming back. Yep, 100% passed, all green. Perfect. So let's go ahead and save it back to Spira. So we do save to Spira. That uploads the test script and all the assets and all the other information back up to Spira. Yep, that's good. And SpiraTeam acts as your version control system. So if you make a change to this test and save it back, you'll see all the different versions back here in SpiraTeam. So hit refresh. There's our new test, simple functional test, not run. If we click on it, we'll notice that because it's an automated test, it doesn't really have steps. They're empty. It does have an automation section right here, and all the test files are stored and versioned directly in SpiraTeam. So let's go ahead and run that from SpiraTeam. So how do we do that? Well, we go over to the same place we went before. We go to test sets, and we're going to create a new test set. We're going to call it functional test 1 or functional suite 1. It's like that. Go to that one. Perfect. And I need to schedule that, so we'll choose the release 1, and we don't assign it to a person this time. We now assign it to a computer. So I choose automated host, TARDIS, that's my machine. Give it a date, which is today and right now. Hits, and we also need to add a test. So let's go ahead and save that, and let's go ahead and add a test case to it. So I want to add a functional test. Sorry, not exploratory, functional, and then it'll be simple functional test. There it is. Hit save. That's it. That's all you do. Now it's scheduled. And we sit back and wait. Now what's going on behind the scenes is I'm going to close Rapise down. We have a tool called Rapise Launcher, which is right here. And that's connecting to SpiraTeam all the time. It's connecting every 2 or 3 minutes. It depends on the frequency you set up. We've set it to run every 2 minutes. We give this the machine name TARDIS. So that's how this particular machine knows which tests are for it, which machines are for someone else. And that's really important. I don't want to make you wait 30 seconds on this video, so I'm going to hit the force poll. That just tells it to do it right now. It's useful for testing it out when you're first using it, and I'm going to hold over here and wait. And what's going to happen now is the test is going to run, and it's going to do exactly what we saw before. It's going to click through the login page, put the login and password in, it's going to log in, it's going to verify, and it's going to log out, and then it's going to be done. But this time it's being done from SpiraTeam, and the results are all being transmitted back into the centralized test management tool. So if we go back over here and we hit refresh, it goes from not run to green. You'll see down here, if I hit refresh here, that goes to passed, shows how long it took. And if we click on the test run or on those links, there is our test result. And you can see how long it took, how long it was meant to take, which suite it was a part of. And you can see right here the exact steps from Rapise. So it opened up that test file. It logged in, it put the username in, it put the password in, it hit the button, it verified, it matched, and then it came back and finished, logged out. And we do have screenshot capture embedded, so you can see your screenshots right here. So when it does fail, say it's failed at step 3 or 4, you've got a screenshot that will hopefully show you what happened. The system went down, the URL changed, the button changed, whatever the test found that went wrong, it's right here and captured in the system. So that's how you do a simple functional test using Rapise with Spira. So the next thing is load testing. So how do we do that? Well, load testing works in a very similar way. What you need to do is go back into your test case view and create a test case. And so we already created one before under load tests, sample load test 1. And when it comes to load testing, the test case has a name, has a description, same as before. The difference now is we choose the test engine. Instead of it being Rapise, it is now NeoLoad, and we have to put in the file name to where we find the test. So let's take a pause a second and shoot over to our VM where we're running the load testing tool. And NeoLoad is right here, and there's our, let's go into NeoLoad right here. NeoLoad is the test designer. So NeoLoad is the tool that you use to write the load test, and once you finish with that, it also is the load controller where you controls the running of the load test, and the last thing it consists of is the load generator. So the controller basically lets you run the test, and the generator generates the load. So for example, you might want to run the same test against your website and launch 50 virtual users against it. And that's all done within NeoLoad. The other thing you'll want to do is define the SLAs. So when you run the test, not only does it run the test and generate 50 users worth of load against your website, you also want to know, did it do what it was supposed to do in the time it was meant to do it? And that's what we call an SLA. So if we look at a sample test in NeoLoad, it's right here. It's going to basically let you see the test. And while that's coming up, we're going to show you one other thing, which is how do we run these things? Which is a great question. So when you've got your NeoLoad test written and published, you have to then schedule it from Spira, and that's where you use a tool called Remote Launch. Oh, actually, we'll come back to that. It's up and running. So here's NeoLoad. So we're going to run a test scenario called Scenario 1, and we're going to run it against a particular URL. And we're going to use a constant set of load. Now, with 10 users. Now, you could have a ramp-up load where it starts at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. You can do peaks and valleys where you try and spike the load. There's lots and lots of functionality in NeoLoad. And in this video, we cannot do justice to all the functionality in NeoLoad. It is a very powerful load testing tool. There are videos on our website, on Neotest's website, which go through NeoLoad in much more detail than we could do today. But suffice to say, this is the tool you use to generate your load test. You design it, you point the URLs, you define the pages, you then tell it what load to use, what the number of users, what population, and then what is the variation policy. And that's really important. And then once that's done, you're going to then use this and run it from SpiraTeam. And then in the design standpoint, here's the name of the test cases. You can do things like loops, you can do conditions, you can have branches, lots of different things are available here. It's also where you specify the SLAs. So that way, when you run the test back, not only does the test run, but did it actually run within the time specified? And that's going to be really important when we get the results back into SpiraTeam. Okay, so that's where you write the tests. And then the important thing for today is we need to know that is scenario 1 right there, and we need to know that it's being saved into a specific location right here. There you go, you can see in the tooltip. NeoLoad projects, NeoLoad sample, test NLP. So what we do, let's close that. No, I didn't do that. Back here in SpiraTeam, here is the path to the test, and then here's the name of the scenario. That's all you need to have, those two things. It's really easy. So we've done that. I did that ahead of time. And then the next thing we do is once you've created our test cases, we then have to put them into a suite. And I've already created a performance suite. It's very similar to the one we did for the automation functional testing, except that instead of it being pointed to the automation host TARDIS, it's pointed to VM NeoLoad, which is this VM I'm running. And I've also told it to run today, and I've also told it to be automated, and I added the one load test to it. And in real life, you'd often have more than one test case. You might be doing different load tests, but you could do functional tests and load tests. You could do remix and match. It's up to you. Lots of flexibility. So for right now, let's go ahead and run it again. So let's go into here and we'll reschedule it. And I'm just going to blank that out and reschedule it for right now. There you go. And we hit save. It switches back to not started. And if you go back into the machine with NeoLoad, remote launch is polling, just like we had before with Rapise. It checks every couple of minutes. We've missed a cycle, so I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I don't want you to wait 2 minutes on this video. I'll hit force poll. It's going to run again, and that's okay. So it's going to start the load controller. It launches the controller reads the project file. It also then contacts the load generator and says, I've got this test, here's the URLs, here's the test data, here's the parameters, go start spinning up load, start generating it, start firing requests against the web page, start recording the results and building the metrics. And that does take a little bit of time, so while that's running, like all good cooking shows, I do have one I prepared earlier. So if we scroll down, we'll see we've already run this a few times. If we go to test runs, you'll look here, here's some runs. Let's look at this one. So this is a run I did about an hour ago, and we ran the load tester, and it ran the suite, it failed. And so if you look down here, you'll see what happened. So you can see, first of all, step by step what happened. So with the load test, it's not so much steps that we're caring about, it's metrics. If you run a load test with no SLAs, well, what does that mean? I mean, it ran, it did some stuff, it will always show passed. The important thing is, once you define SLAs, now you're saying, not only does it need to run and generate 10 users, 100 users, 1,000 users, we do expect this page to still load within 2 seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds. Whatever the different SLAs are, you define them in NeoLoad, and then NeoLoad reports back, did you meet those SLAs? If you did, it's considered passed. If you came close but not quite, it'll be marked as caution. If you breach the SLA, it's failed. And then SpiraTeam takes all of those and says, what's the worst case? Well, we have some cautions and some fails, therefore we're failed. If it were all passed, it would show passed. And you also see the top unit errors we see, you can see the response times, there's some other high-level metrics, and that's very nice. And then this reports back against the requirements in SpiraTeam, so your requirement might show functional test passed, load test failed, manual test was good. So you might have 3 different test cases all tying back to one original requirement. But as a load engineer, you might want to go one level deeper and say, well, okay, great, I've got this list of metrics, I see it failed, I want to know more than that. That's great. We do also attach to the test result the PDF of the detailed test report from NeoLoad. So click on that, that pops your PDF viewer. Here's a test report. And that gives you a lot more information than we can show directly in SpiraTeam. It shows you the results summary, it shows you the spikes of the load, how the load was distributed over time, the throughput, the response times, the SLAs, the profiles. Here's the SLAs here. Here's where we specify what it had to do, what the response time range was. And you can see a stormy cloud means it was a failure, which corresponds to the reds we saw before. The sort of white cloud means it was a warning, that becomes a caution. If you see any sun, which we don't, that will be green in the pass. So it maps directly into the SpiraTeam reporting as well. And there's lots of other graphs and charts here. And every time you run this test, it's going to create a new PDF, and it's all centrally stored in SpiraTeam, which is great. So you don't have to go looking for these results. It's all inside your main test management interface. So within SpiraTeam, you're going to have your test results for load tests with a nice report. You'll see your functional tests with nice screenshots, and you'll see your manual tests with lots and lots of results from humans with screenshots and other information. But all this in one system, all available on demand in real time. So that's an overview of SpiraTeam, an overview of writing an automated test for functional testing with Rapise, and an automated test using NeoLoad. So let's go back to our presentation. One thing I wanted to mention was we do have this easy migration utility as well. So once you've decided that you want to move away from Micro Focus, it's really easy to do so. And just a few things I want you to take away. So first of all, we've looked at the SpiraTeam in the most detail today, and I've gone through the main features of SpiraTeam that make it the best tool. There are 10 features that really, I think, stand out apart from the ALM tool from Micro Focus, and we do have a white paper on our website which does break out each of those 10 features in a lot more detail. I have covered them during the demo. The other thing I wanted to show you today was that you can integrate Rapise and NeoLoad really easily into SpiraTeam, and that gives you an integrated functional and load testing picture, and it's an integrated QA platform. And it's much easier to use. All those 3 tools are much easier to use than UFT, LoadRunner, and ALM. Rapise is completely codeless, doesn't use VBA. NeoLoad is much easier than LoadRunner to use. It's got cloud-based generators, got on-premise generators. It's really simple. And SpiraTeam is far easier to use and manage than ALM is. And you've seen how they work together to give you this comprehensive and powerful solution. And the last thing is you can use our easy-to-use wizard to migrate from Micro Focus to Inflectra really easily, one click. So I hope today's video was helpful. If you'd like to learn more about software testing, Agile, DevOps, or other aspects of the software development or testing lifecycle, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks so much.